Okay, welcome back, everyone. Today we have a amazing guest. It is someone who I've been following on social media for a while now, and I recently just joined her membership. So today I have Lindsay Mitchell here with me. She is a brain retraining coach and the founder and CEO of Vital Side. Welcome to ICU, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and excited that you're getting started too inside of Vital Side.
I know. I'm really excited to talk to you today about like neuroplasticity and brain retraining because the topic is a bit it's a bit complex. I think at first I feel like there's been layers for me at least that it's like, okay, I have a basic understanding, and then you peel back a layer and you start learning more, and then it gets a little bit easier as you go. So I think today you're going to really help the audience understand more about this topic. So let's dive in. Can you share more, or can you share about your background, and if you're okay with it, your health journey and how it led you to where you are today with Vital Side?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've been studying uh, science, biology for decades now at this point. And I started out as an internal medicine PA and worked in Western medicine and loved it. I still keep up with my credentials. I do love medicine as a whole. And with my background working in molecular biology in college, and then kind of getting my master's in PA studies and working in internal medicine, it's always been something that I've loved, like studying the body, learning about the body. And while I was working as a travel PA, I ended up getting really sick. So, like a lot of people, I got these kind of chronic symptoms seemingly out of nowhere, like it was almost overnight. And I had this joint pain, and I had never had a migraine before. And all of a sudden, I was getting daily migraines. I never even thought I had anxiety before, but all of a sudden, I was having these like really intense anxiety attacks or panic attacks. And then I started to become sensitive to my environment. So, like certain smells and foods and things like that. So, this took place over a couple of months. And at the time, I was traveling so much, I just thought it was jet lag. But when I ended up kind of coming back to the States and thinking about my journey and really understanding, like, no, okay, there's something wrong here, there's something going on. And prior to being diagnosed with Lyme disease, I had been bitten by a tick about 6 months earlier. And I remembered that experience and didn't really think anything of it at the time. And what I know now, it wasn't exactly the tick that put me over the edge. It really could have been any viral or bacterial infection, but it was my way of my body saying, okay, like I've had enough, and I can't take any more of this stress, carry any more of this stress. So that was kind of my perfect storm. The tick bite was kind of the last straw for me. And I got that diagnosis. I wanted to dive into everything and anything to help because, we get desperate. We want to try everything. I'm also someone who is kind of very much 0 to 100. So with my internal medicine background, I treated people with Lyme before. I actually studied in Massachusetts and Connecticut and was, it was very endemic in that area. So I was very familiar. So I started with kind of more of the Western treatment, quickly transitioned into more an integrative, like holistic approach to healing. But I kept getting more symptomatic. And that was such a struggle. So, perhaps I was treating the Lyme and I was detoxing, but I was still so inflamed. My body was still so symptomatic to the point where I felt absolutely hopeless, to the point where, at one point I wanted to end it all and just thought that dying would be an easier path than dealing with all of the pain and the anxiety. And at that point, I was having hallucinations. So very, very much like, hit the bottom of the barrel, was just like at my wit's end. And through that process, like through that experience, it made me realize like there's got to be something else that I've completely missed. And I am very analytically minded, so I couldn't think of anything else. So I was seeking, and I turned to research and blog posts and social media. And I actually came across the concept of neuroplasticity and applying it to chronic illness on a blog post. And this woman was describing her own journey of chronic illness and recognizing that her nervous system was in a state of chronic stress, and not a conscious state of stress, but a physiological state of stress. And so every day was a battle. She was living in the survival fight flight mode in order to, deal with the bacterial infection she was experiencing. And that to me was like such a light bulb moment of understanding you can treat all you want, you can detox all you want, but your body can still be responding like it's under constant danger and constant state of threat. And if you're still receiving that message, you can do as many treatments and detox remedies as you want, but you can still be getting that message of threat. So your body can still be inflamed and you can still be sensitive. And that was a huge thing for me. I was like, why am I still sensitive? And I really was like, okay, this is the missing puzzle piece for me. Like that was just such a huge moment in my healing journey. And at the time, this was almost a decade ago, I did every program that was offered. I tried to read as much as I could with the brain fog, all of the books about neuroplasticity, and Dr. Norman Deutsch and Candace Pert and Joe Dispenza, and learned about how the brain communicates with the body, and the body communicates with the brain. And I started to apply the material. So with the programs that I was doing, with the information I was learning, and really within months, I started to see drastic changes to how I was feeling. And within about a year's time, made that full recovery from Lyme disease, and haven't had any chronic symptoms since. And so when I went back to my practice, wanting to, include some of this work in my own practice, I recognized that there was this kind of niche missing in the medical field. There's like, people talk about how the brain makes changes to the body and vice versa, maybe in more of the mindset realm, and with like coaches and things like that. But in the medical field, it seemed to be missing so much. So I wanted to build something where I worked with practitioners and gave their patients this information to calm inflammation in their bodies so that their bodies could heal, that they could be set up for success to feel better. And that's what I did. So I created VitalSide, and that was almost 7 years ago now. And so it's been really cool to watch it grow and watch it evolve over the years. And now nervous system regulation is trending, which is so incredible to see.
You're right. It's so trendy right now. I think we're all kind of opening our eyes to just the norm in our culture. And you're so right about that. So I realize now that we skipped over what neuroplasticity really means, just in case anybody has never heard of that term before. Would you mind just defining that for everyone?
Yeah. So neuro refers to pretty much the brain. And plasticity means malleability or ability to change. So neuroplasticity is really the definition that the brain is able to change. Now, that's one definition, but the application piece is within the last couple of decades, we've learned that the brain changes at any age. It used to be thought that, the brain doesn't change after you reach adulthood. Well, now that we know that the brain is still forming, structurally until your mid-20s, but the brain changes throughout your life by creating new neural pathways. And so we're always birthing new brain cells through the process of neurogenesis and creating new neural pathways through the process of neuroplasticity. And so all of this means when we learn new information, or when we create habits, or when we study a new instrument or a new language, or you're listening to this podcast today, your brain is changing in real time. You're creating new neural pathways. So the actions that we take, the behaviors that we have, the habits that we have, all of these things instill those neural pathways. So if you learn the guitar and you continue to put effort, put practice into learning the guitar, and you practice every day, an hour a day for the next year, that neural pathway associated to playing the guitar has strengthened so much and grown so much. And now like all of these songs, perhaps you're playing in a local band, like this is something that now has become a memory to you because you put so much time and attention into it. So the same thing happens when we are dealing with chronic stress. So again, it can come in the form of like a physical stressor, like a bacteria or virus, or a psychological stressor. So maybe a abusive situation that you had as a kid, or a traumatic event of some sort, even like a car accident, or something maybe that's more little t trauma. So a teacher calling on you when your hand wasn't raised in school. All of these situations are memorized as traumatic events in our bodies. And if we don't process them, they live there, they get stored there. So when we have enough of these events and continued stressors in our lives, whether it is psychological or physical, like a virus or bacterial infection or something like that, then we get in the habit of experiencing that chronic stress response, and our day-to-day life becomes operating in that stress response. That neural pathway is strengthened again and again and again. So the process of brain retraining, at its simplest form, is breaking the pattern of stress, breaking the pattern of those neural pathways, and introducing a new neural pathway, one associated to safety. So you really go from survival to safety. And that's what I teach in Vital Side. And that's why doing these tools alongside the current treatments you're on, your healing journey, can make the supplements that you take or the treatments that you're on so much more effective, because you're decreasing inflammation in your body through the process of your brain changing and then sending new signals to your body through physiological responses. So it's such a cool process. We've taken the woo out of it. You don't even have to have that mindset to understand it anymore. And it's incredible to see how the body can heal when you start to signal that message of safety.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I am someone who has been in that chronic stress state for, I swear, my entire life. And so I believe that that is a root cause of my interstitial cystitis. And this is kind of something that I've been talking a lot about in my social media content, in my programs, on this podcast, is how dysregulated our nervous systems are, and how I believe that that really contributes to bladder symptoms and symptoms of, pain, urgency, frequency, things like that. But when we start to talk about the topic of brain retraining and neuroplasticity, I think some people get sensitive with that topic because it feels like there's an implication that the pain is in their head. What are your thoughts on that?
It's absolutely not true. It's a physiological response. So it can start in your head from perceived stress, but then the physiological response happens in your body. So it's really that brain-body communication. So if you look at pain alone, pain is a warning signal from the brain telling you to pay attention. So is inflammation. And so, if you've been diagnosed with IC and you're experiencing this bladder pain, that's really your body's way of trying to get your attention and saying something is wrong. And so the stress response originates, from perceived threat in the brain, but that gets communicated to the body. So it's nothing that you're doing wrong, and it's not even something that you have conscious control over. It's your body's way of experiencing that physiological stress response, which shows up as pain and shows up as inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. It can feel triggering to think, like, when you hear the word stress, you immediately think like, oh, that's your fault. You're the one that, is stressed out and you should calm your stress. But it's not as simple as that. Start to think about stress as, instead of psychological, it's physiological. So it's your body's way of trying to protect you and get your attention, not in your mind, but in your body. And that may help to kind of calm any fear or stress you may think of when you hear it's all in your head.
Mm-hmm. That's an amazing explanation. And I really feel like that will be impactful for a lot of the listeners here that have been kind of on the fence about, how they feel on this topic. I've had clients who I can tell that they're stressed on our weekly group calls, but they don't realize it. And it is a process. It's a journey of realizing, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I am stressed and I have been stressed for a really long time. And then once they have that light bulb moment, it's like a total game changer. Once you can be aware of it and then start working on that, I think it's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Start to think of it as your body's way of responding to traumatic events, physical, emotional, mental, and psychological. So it's not all in your head, it's also in your body, and it's also being expressed in your physiology. And every single person experiences this when they have that buildup of stressful events. And that's our body's way of trying to protect us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, how is your approach inside VitalSide? How is it different from other nervous system regulation practitioners or programs?
So, with how I have my programs laid out, like a big part of what I teach is the science. That's really important to me just with my medical background. So, bringing your analytical mind on board to an extent so you understand what's going on. And after you kind of have that knowledge, then we move into the protocols. So a big part of what I do, like, you see a lot of things that are trending on social media about like breathing techniques and, regulate your nervous system in a minute. And all of that can be really good. And there's no hate there because I say that stuff too. But when you're dealing with the chronic stress response, and you've been in this state of survival for maybe, months or even years, you need more structured protocols moving you through the response so you can communicate safety. So it's about accessing the rest and digest response, which I have created protocols that use top-down regulation, meaning using the mind to make changes to the body, and a combination of that and bottom-up regulation. So more of the somatic practices, using the body, movement, breathing, tools like that to make changes to how you feel and think about things. So using a combination of those tools I've seen to be the most effective. And the main thing we do differently than other programs is the mental rehearsal piece. Training with goals that you want to complete. Eating that food you want to eat, moving your body in a certain way, going to your best friend's wedding, whatever it is, those things that your physiological responses, that threat response deems as dangerous, and introducing those things back into your life in an effective way. So we do it through the process of incremental training. And that is like a game changer, because when you use that process, then you'll see tangible changes to your life. Like food is a big one. People can start eating the foods that they love again, even within a matter of a couple of weeks, or, moving their body in a way that feels effective to them. So it's introduction of certain activities in a slow way using mental rehearsal in combination with getting into that state of rest and digest. So it is a process and there is a structure to it. And so I know a lot of people reach out and they're like, I'm using the breathing and I'm not seeing a change, because breathing is one tool that you can use in a toolbox of so many modalities, but it's going to take more of that structured process to introduce things in a way that feels safe for you. So just like anything else, it takes that effort, that structure to see changes to it. So if you're trying to regulate your nervous system on your own and you can't do it, do not feel bad. This is something that I've studied for years and designed these protocols too. So I get my hair done because I don't know how to do that, and someone does it way better. So being able to go to someone, get the structured exercises so that you can start implementing these tools on your own, that's the goal. And then it's you shifting you. It's you being empowered to use these tools, feel a change to your symptoms, and then start feeling better. And it's such a cool process. It's incredible to see how people's bodies heal and change and transform during the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So this mental rehearsal thing sounds very fascinating to me, and I can't wait to dive into it inside of the membership, the Rewire membership. And I think that would be so helpful for people with interstitial cystitis, because there's a ton of what if situations in their brain, like stressful events, like going out to eat or going to a wedding, like you said, just going anywhere and you're like, where's the bathroom? There's a ton of food fear occurring. And I think it sounds like mental rehearsal could be helpful for people struggling with those things.
Yeah, I had a client, Jessica, who is in remission from interstitial cystitis after using Rewire. And a big part of it was slowly first diminishing that stress response, that fear response, using specific protocols, but then training to be at places for a longer period of time without running to the bathroom. And so I've worked with people who have IC on that process, and even, intimacy with their partner and going to events for longer periods of time, or, being able to sleep through the night without having to get up and go to the bathroom. So it's a process, and it does take that step. We do take that step-by-step approach, but I've seen it happen where you can achieve remission and be able to live symptom-free. So it's really incredible to see what the body can do.
And I think just hearing you say that is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. Just knowing that at least one person in this world has reached remission through this work. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can share her video testimonial with your audience as well in the show notes if that's helpful, just to kind of hear someone else's story, because I was very similar. Like, Lyme disease is similar in a way. You go and you research it, and then mostly you just hear about all of the people who are still symptomatic and still so sick. And, 20 years later, they're dealing with the symptoms. So it isn't everybody. And there are those people out there who are using other tools. And that's what I love about this work, is to see, how far it can take people.
Absolutely. I know you have to get going in a few minutes, but can you explain the differences between the programs that you offer for anyone who's interested in working with you?
Yeah, so the program that you purchased, Rewire, is the program I recommend for people with chronic illness. So this is for people who have that diagnosis, like IC, like Lyme, like mast cell activation syndrome, a lot of more of those ambiguous or autoimmune conditions that may have like an ambiguous treatment plan. Rewire is the place to go. So that membership is my oldest program, fully comprehensive 1-year subscription that gives you the education, that gives you the tools, the community. And if you want private or group sessions as well, that's an option for you. The other program that I will suggest, so if you are tuning in and you don't have chronic symptoms, you maybe have stress and anxiety, and you're kind of just dealing with the stressors of day-to-day life, my newest program, Reboot, is for those people who may have just experienced a stressful event, like a loss in their family, or a job change, or a move, or maybe you just became pregnant and you're dealing with the stress of that. And so again, I use stress in that term not in a negative way, but our bodies perceive stress all of the time. So Reboot gives you tools to move through those stressful experiences. And the reason why I created Reboot actually was, Rewire was my main program for years. And I had a lot of clients who would reach out and say, like, I want to share this information with my partner or my best friend or my father-in-law, but they don't have chronic illness. Like, can this work for them? So Reboot is a little bit less comprehensive and time consuming, but it is helpful for those people who want those daily tools. And I like to think of it as a preventative program, so that, you are moving through stress in an effective way and possibly preventing more of those chronic conditions.
Awesome. I will link those in the show notes. I'm also going to put your social media in the show notes as well. And then one note that I feel like I just need to share before you go, my one client, her name is Amy. She is cool with me sharing this. She is also in your Rewire membership, and I think she's been in it for maybe 3-ish months now. And she is doing so well. Her symptoms are basically gone. That was kind of the last piece of the puzzle for her. And last week she sent me a DM that said, Callie, I just walked through Walmart and I was fine. I did not stress. I did not panic. And like, I think that's so fantastic. I was like, Amy, I don't know how anybody on this planet could not be stressed in a Walmart. So good for you.
That's what I was going to say. Oh,
Yeah.
I love hearing that. I think, I get goosebumps every time, because it truly is, something that you have to do, that you put the work into doing, but It's such an empowering modality. Like I felt the same way when I started to use this material and be like, oh, I don't have to outsource every part of my health. I don't have to just take another supplement or go get another IV treatment. Like this is part of my healing journey, like a huge piece of the puzzle that I can do at home in between appointments and, really see that healing in real time. So I'm, so happy to hear that and happy to hear that she's feeling so much better in such a short period of time. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, you're making such an impact. So thank you for that. Thank you for putting these programs together. And thank you for coming on this show. This has been really fun.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, for those people who are dealing with IC today and you do feel like there's no hope for you, there's nothing left for you, and you've tried all the things and the diet changes and the treatment plans and seen all the practitioners and spent so much money, just know that there is always something else. And it could be what's inside of you. We have these healing properties, these innate healing properties within us. They're just kind of waiting to be unlocked. So I've seen nervous system regulation be like a huge piece of the puzzle for so many people's journeys. So you can always try it out. And the beautiful thing is that there are no side effects. And
So
you
true.
can start and see how you do and watch the transformation occur.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.